good afternoon. It's Thursday afternoon. It's time for some great Cadesport racing here. I am Beth York, and I am joined with Frank Garcia. Hey, Frank, how are you today?
Good, good. And yourself, Beth?
Feeling really great. Feeling really great. Ready to hit the racing today? What do we have in store today for these races today? Coming off of Tuesday racing.
Yeah, we changed it up a little bit. This is definitely much more endurance oriented. In fact, probably run just a little bit over an hour, pretty close to an hour. So we'll see how fast they go, and definitely flat.
Yeah.
We're also doing a shakeout cruise on the new release. So there was a release overnight. So we'll be doing the shakeout cruise there as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. So looking at the playlist here, we've got 4 of these races in our mix. The first one is Cade Fondo here. This is 20 kilometers, as you said. A little bit longer race. When we do have these longer races at the top, people are making those strategic decisions about how they want to handle their legs, their mental acuity throughout the playlist here. As we move on, and there'll be no power-ups in this race, by the way, so strictly an endurance and tactic race. Race number 2 today is Cadeville. It's 1 lap. There will be 2 Razor's Edge and a score multiplier of 1.5. Now, I didn't mention that first race has a multiplier of 3. So when you're thinking about our racers having their tactics, trying to scoop up as many points as they can across these 4 races in the playlist is going to be super important. Moving on to race 3, Cade Kart Grand Prix, 2 laps, 1 corner caper, and a quantum shift. And this one has no multiplier, so we'll see how our racers respond to that. And then, of course, we finish up with race 4, Rocky Mountains, 1 lap, no power-ups, and a score multiplier of 2. So as we get about a minute to the gate, let's talk a little bit about Tuesday's race and what we think might be coming into this race. We had Carl Axel being a little bit cagey, but very, very smart. We had Sebastian in the mix. We had Timothy in the mix. What do you think we're going to see today with our racers?
Well, I don't see Carl or Seb in the race today. Maybe they're still doing an update and they'll join sort of last minute because there was an update and that might have caught them by surprise. We all know how that goes in virtual cycling. But we've got Timothy out today and we've got Mark out today. We've got Homer and Kay. Now, Homer and Kay have been riding a ton, and I think everybody should be scared if Homer and Kay take a day or 2 off and then come to a race. But so they've been riding so much, I would assume they're a little bit fatigued. Now, interestingly, Timothy might be a little fatigued. He raced yesterday in the West London event, and we'll see how that affects his legs today. So maybe Mark, Shaq, Vanessa, and Renee have some opportunity here, although I would think that Shaq and Renee are a little bit lacking on the endurance front. Erhan here is, sort of off to the front. But again, we're starting to see much calmer starts by the people who have experience on Cadesport, and I think that's due to the drafting dynamics working like they do in real life. And there's no reason in real life to start a long race off with a 800-watt sprint for 20 or 30 seconds.
Yeah, no kidding. No, save that punch to get your positioning and then to respond to some of the tactics and attacks that you see in the game. You can see this cluster forming together: Erhan, Pedro, Shaq, Martin, Homer, and those 2 riders you mentioned, Homer and Kay, Team CCC, their jerseys are there in yellow. Timothy's kind of drifting off the back here. Maybe he's just trying to take advantage of the draft here. Smart if he does that, because he can kind of really use the group, but that's giving Vanessa a chance to attach on to that. Renee can see the group up ahead, and doesn't look like looks like he's just racing his own race today. He's not trying to chase the group. He's just kind of
I think
keeping a steady pace.
It's interesting because he should probably put the pedal down to the metal and get to the back of that group, because what he's not thinking, and I used to make this mistake sometimes, you think it's going to be easier. It's going to be way easier at the back of this group, because the group's going maybe 300 watts on the front, and Renee could be doing 150 watts in the back of this group, but right now he's doing 300 watts, right? So he's probably thinking it's going to be easier. He's probably thinking he didn't have the endurance to make the whole ride, but boy, is it so much easier at the back of one of these groups.
Yeah, if you can just kind of, and with the race that starts being a little more calm, you have that opportunity to stay attached and until someone starts to have the fun and games here. As they make their way through here, you can see that their heart rates are, pretty comfortable. Pedro a little bit higher than the rest, which makes sense. He's on the front, taking on the wind and drafting for the group. The other racers here are saying that's okay, Pedro, you can take it. But I do think, we've talked about Pedro the last couple races, Frank, and I think that he's got some determination today. I feel like he's going to have a great day today. I think that he's really come into his own. He knows what he needs to do. And I think if anything here, he's establishing the pace, but he might whoops, Timothy goes, okay, see you later. Little attack, little punch off the front, said, you guys keep talking about Pedro, and I'm just going to sneak attack, come around the back. He closed that gap, came up to the group, and then saw that corner as an opportunity to cut across the corner, the apex of the corner there, and just take it off the front and said, nope, I'll set the pace here. I'm Timothy. I know what I'm doing here. You can see Timothy there on camera in his famous red pain layer. And 573 equal watts. You can see his heart rate is 178 equalized there. Pedro's kind of come and close it down behind him. And what I'm surprised to see, I think the two Team CCC riders aren't really going to respond to these attacks because they don't have to. They can kind of hang on to the group and let someone else close it down, and they can maybe work together, as the race progresses.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things, I probably would have Pedro sort of closed this down and maybe has an idea he could work with Timothy here. But I probably would have let Timothy sit out there and cook for, I don't know, 10, 12 kilometers. Kept him within, 5 seconds. But I probably, that's probably the move that I would have made there. We see Homer and Kay either being a little bit fatigued or just being super smart and saying, you know what, we're just going to maintain sort of an even pace. And, the group's going to slow down when they catch Timothy because it's going to back off, and we'll eventually get on the back, but we won't have burnt any of our matches. So we keep our matches in reserve there. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and you can see there by the speed, though, too. If you look at Homer and Kay, 45 kph in the front, 44 kph. So they will, they're not letting off the gas, so to speak, but they're just sort of maybe more leveling their effort. And I've seen that with Homer and Kay, the endurance that they have, punching out a nice steady watts that you can hold for that duration here. Martin coming up to the front, taking a turn, saying, okay, I will come up here with Pedro. I'm wondering here if the two of them are having a little coalition to say, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And of course, we're all frenemies here in game because we all love each other and are friends with each other. But when we are game face on here, it can definitely feel serious and personal, and these are competitors. These folks want to win, and sometimes you got to team up with make some unlikely coalitions to sort of unseat people like Timothy, and that group behind is formed together. Did get spread out, but that group of 4 or 5 looks like it will not let this gap open up. They should probably work together to close that down here, just a second or two back, because that can grow quickly when we hit a bump. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, we had 3 people off the front here, so the back definitely needs to respond, because 3 people working together can be quite hard to catch. It's not like we have, 100 people behind them, so it would be more like, 6 or 7 people behind them, which gives them a little bit of an advantage. But boy, sometimes it's, everybody looks at each other. So good to pull that back. Again, I think we've got Kay and Homer playing it smart. We've got Mark back there playing it smart. Renee fell off his bike and is walking next to it, I think. They're a little bit further back. I think maybe he's riding with some bots. And if I was him, I'd let the bots who are doing a little bit more work get in front of me, and then hope the front of the race just comes to a crawl, which I don't think that it will. We've got Martin here on the front, and he's trying to, sort of liven things up. It was a little bit of a slow start, other than the animation that maybe Timothy gave. And so I was thinking, well, this is going to take a lot longer than a half an hour. But I think we will definitely be sort of under that half an hour mark if we keep in the 400-watt range.
Gotcha. Yeah, now this is just one lap. It's 14.8 kilometers to go. There are no power-ups in this. So this is pure road cycling with some tactics that we're going to see. So, of course, the drafting dynamic, taking advantage of being tucked in a nice long line like that. It helps with efficiency. You can save some of your legs. And, definitely it's nice to be on the front and to feel the front, but it's also nice to take a turn here. I always know that sometimes I'll hop to the front if I want to try to settle down the pace a little bit, because sometimes the pace can be so hard, even in the peloton, even with the drafting, that you're holding on by your fingernails. So before you get to that point, it's probably good to pop off and let someone come around and take the lead here. We're on board here with Mark. It looks like he's doing a heroic effort here to chase down that group and close the gap. That's just one of those things you said earlier, Frank. It's like, they're 3 seconds up the road, and gosh, he's got to do a pretty big effort to close that down. But once he does, he can just kind of do that vacuum seal into into the group. There he is. There's working. You can see how hard he's working, the concentration, the focus, the hard work. His heart rate 190, almost 500 watts there. And as we've said before, the equals is 421 is threshold for these riders. So he's over threshold trying to chase it down. And you can see those other riders are under threshold. Come on, you can do it. You can do it, Mark. Timothy there on the back there, letting just following the line. Mark, you are about to click right in. Keep it going. Keep the pedal down, my friend. You will get and close the gap. That was a really, really nice effort. Nice job. All right, get in there and see if you can let those legs recover a little bit.
Yeah,
nope. A little bit push.
Get back on there. Don't come off the gas too soon. It's a mistake I've often made out on the road. You want to get all the way to that back wheel, especially in the virtual cycling area. Now, what you see is Martin saying, okay, we've got Mark sort of dangling here. Maybe we just want to remove him, from contention later on, because sometimes you let these riders get back in. They get their second wind. Looks like Timothy says, yeah, I'll come back here, give you a little help, give you a little pull back up here. And we'll both catch the group. But very nice. That's almost like a ride versus a race move. But maybe they've got some plans for later on. Martin keeping the pressure on the front. We see that the group is spreading out here across the road a little bit. Means we're in that FTP sort of range. I've noticed that it looks to me like Vanessa has been saving a lot. She's riding smart here. Kay and Homer made it back on. We can see that Kay is quite low on the heart rate. I think Homer's got an elevated heart rate. My guess on that would be that's more of a fatigue component. I've actually been trying to send some missives off to Homer. Hey, you've been riding a lot, and maybe rest your legs for a day or two, like I've been saying, and I think he'll come back. He'll get amazing spring from all the training that he's been doing. But anyway, we'll see how this goes. And as I say that, they're like, nope, we're going to the front, and we're going to show you what Team CCC can do here. Surprising, Peter isn't here today. This is sort of another member of Team CCC who loves less technical, more endurance. So I would have expected maybe a threesome on CCC today, but it'll be interesting to see how Homer and Kay play this today as well. Now, Homer's putting in a huge effort on the front, over 600 watts. So he's going to be putting the entire peloton under pressure here.
Yeah, I think he just knew that he had a few people on the back. Mark had just made the connection there. He had a little help from Timothy, but it wasn't quite enough. Timothy gave him a little pull, and then Mark had to keep working. But I think Homer was able to say, let's see if we can break this up just a little bit, because if we can just have a smaller group and have less people in podium contention, the better it will be for them. So it doesn't look like they lost too many. Looks like Martin's still there, Shaq a second back, Mark a second back. So Shaq and they should probably work together and Mark to see if they can kind of keep moving and keep the pace up, because when this group gets to the hill, it will slow down. So if those two riders that are about a second back can kind of keep their speed up while the group in front of them just starts to pick their speed up, then they'll be in a little bit better shape. Now, it'll be interesting to see who maybe makes an attack on this climb, because this is a big lump coming up, and I think this will serve to separate the group. So anyone who's saving legs that's been resting, I'm talking about maybe a Vanessa, maybe Homer and Kay, they just took that pull. They're tucked back in now, but Pedro spent a lot of time on the front. Martin spent some time on the front. So, I'm watching the heart rates a little bit. Kay looking, nice and controlled, and Shaq a little bit lower. But like as we said, Pedro there at the front. Timothy, there it is, Timothy, 700 watts. Taking a big punch to the leg, saying, "Okay, I'll go." You can see him reach down, dig in a little bit there, 521 watts. Here's our riders here on camera. Here we've got Timothy on the left, Mark in the middle, and Erhan on the right. And then you can see their corresponding avatars in the game. So you see the effort that these riders are putting on. Look at Erhan's concentration today. He is very business-like, and he looks pretty comfortable too. Hi, Erhan. He looks pretty comfortable. I got a smile out of him. That's awesome. Having a good time there on Cadesport. All right, I love to see it. Looking pretty good. And 3-time multiplier, Frank, we saw on Tuesday how much that makes a difference for the place. And you try to get as many points as you can on these longer races with the higher multipliers.
Yes, you really do. And what we see here, Pedro's covered, Vanessa's made the bridge. And again, I think you've got Homer and Kay. It looks like Shaq is sort of falling off the back. Not surprising there. She's part of the Cadesport team. I'm very familiar with them, obviously. And she's been doing a lot of riding for her level of fitness as of late. And so I think the legs have said no more. Completely understandable there. So this is really down to Vanessa holding the Cadesport flag. But I think Vanessa and Kay might have some surprises as we get near the end of this race. One of the things that I've seen is on these longer races, Kay will sit in, but then at the end she can get quite active. And I think they're perfectly happy to let Timothy continue to burn matches. It looks like Martin's going to look to go there, and I would expect Pedro to respond because he's been very vigilant, and yes, indeed, he's responding. And what happens when these three people respond, and we got Vanessa responding here as well, you really do have to sort of respond. Now, Homer and Kay have played it very cool, but at some point, does the rubber band break with regards to that? And we see Kay here sort of looking to bridge Homer a bit further back, but he's putting out some big watts. And so probably this comes back together, and it's just another match burnt by Timothy. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays.
Yeah, and Timothy doesn't have any teammates in the in the peloton today. Not that I know of, or at least in a matching jersey. Team Hive, they do have a big presence on Cadesport, so he's kind of left to his own devices, working with who he can work with, and then just saying, well, I'm just going to race it. I know I'm a lone wolf in here. I know I've got a target on my back because, I always seem to be finishing, top 3 or top 5. So he is, he does have a target on his back, and he always has something that he has to bring and prove. And he always surprises me. You think that like, oh, I would expect that. I didn't expect that. So he always surprises me with a little something. And, I think maybe his legs are feeling really good today, and he's going to try to get as many points as he can, and nail it there. 700, 600. Yeah, wow, he is putting another punch.
Yeah, they're definitely going hard up here. Vanessa has been doing some fantastic riding to this point, really conserving energy. But this is not the point to do that. This is the point to climb onto those two wheels, or Timothy and Martin are going to say goodbye, hasta la vista. We're not looking back. So this is one of those areas where Vanessa's going to have to burn a match to get back on. Hopefully she'll pull Pedro along with her. Otherwise, it's going to be very, very difficult. So looks like Vanessa is putting the hammer down. Got to keep that power constant and consistent, Vanessa. let that burn enter the legs. There's been she might be getting fatigued as well. She's been riding a lot here as of late as we go into the tunnel, and but they've got to take that 5-second gap. That's too big a gap. Two very motivated people out there. I think Pedro his heart rate is high. He can't really help Vanessa out here. We've got Mark. Now, see, this is what's interesting. So, Mark had a little bit of a hard time getting back on, but it looks like he's coming into his own. Maybe he's catching his second wind here, or his legs are just coming into him finally at this point in the day. And on the front, we do not have a closing rate, so maybe Vanessa's starting to fade a little bit. And that will mean that Martin and Timothy will easily stay away if this group here at about 8 seconds back can't start to work together. Maybe they need to take turns. Maybe Vanessa doesn't have it today, so Mark's got to take a turn pulling, Vanessa's got to take a turn pulling, Kay's got to take a turn pulling, Pedro's got to take a turn pulling. If Homer gets back on, he's got to take a turn, and that's going to be they need to look to set up a true pace line here in order to chase these guys down, who are now extending their lead out at 10 seconds.
Yeah, I think too, the way that happened, and I'm not sure how far up on the hill Timothy was when he was doing those punches, but he was able to come over the top of the hill, add some power, and then use the hill as an assist to gain that speed. And as I was watching the seconds tick away, and I was watching the watts and the rider list, it wasn't that there was a significant difference of power. It was that Timothy was using the terrain to actually gain some speed and create that separation in combination with that attack that he mounted, and it worked. So again, this is something where without power-ups, without needing to do some incredible technical braking and cornering, where he just knows the course and knows how he can use the course to get the max speed, and that speed differential is really what allowed them to open up that gap. So it was a timing move as well as a really, really great strategy, and it seems to have worked for them. These other racers are looking a little unorganized here, which is we have an attack here. Is that what's going on? Mark is putting in an attack, 700 watts here. He's trying to ditch the folks behind him. 5.2 kilometers left in the race. So he's saying, listen, if I can keep those guys behind me, I can get a podium. But 6 seconds back now, he's closing that gap a little bit here. His speed, 49 kph, which is matching Timothy's up front. But math being math, nice work, Mark. He's not necessarily needing to catch the two in front with that doing a little bit slower. He probably won't, but he needs to keep a faster speed than the people behind him. So that's what I would be watching if I was Mark, to hold that third position. It does look like he got a good 6 second gap on Homer and Kay. So nice work there, Mark. So back on the front here with Martin and Timothy. Here, 400 watts. Again, you see them going through the countryside here, and you're like, oh, well, how hard are they really working? They're working. 421 watts is threshold. So they're putting in the effort, 1 and 2 here, with 4.4 kilometers to go. Right now, Timothy taking a little bit of the draft. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is good tactical information, right? And the drafting on Cadesport is really precise in this nature, and everyone will sort of recall when I was saying Vanessa's leaving too much of a gap open. There's this sort of, you can let them hang out there, let them cook. Maybe they're a second down the road, maybe they're 2 seconds down the road, especially if there's just one of them. But as they start to get numbers up front, now you see these guys they were in the hurt locker, they're backing off a little bit here, and then they'll start playing with each other. So that does give the group behind a chance to sort of regroup. Now it looks like Pedro blew up, looks like Vanessa blew up. Now they wouldn't say they blew up so much, right? But these gaps have opened where they couldn't sort of maintain, and then they didn't work very well together. So Martin advantage, Martin and Timothy for sure. We see Mark with a tremendous amount of heart, but he's at 200. He's isolated. He's probably better off waiting for Homer and Kay, and then maybe if they could take turns pulling, right? then they have a chance to bring this back. But with 3 kilometers left, the die might have already been cast.
Yeah, I think that, that's definitely one of those things where you're saying, like, do I, drop back with Homer and Kay and work with them? 3.2 kilometers left. How long is that going to take me? Do I have that in my legs to maintain that gap and hold that third position? I would try to hold it, Mark. I would try to hold it. You've just got 3 kilometers to go with a little bit of a gap there. So 3-second gap. They are closing it, so you got to watch those speeds. Mark and Timothy here on the front. Still, look at the heart rates. They are in the hurt locker right now.
Yes, but they're also taking turns. They're working well together. So this ended up being a really good move, and I think very perceptive on your part about the use of the terrain. Timothy, always good from the technical aspects, but also thinking about the course, where you might make a move. It's not really that big a bump. Looks bigger from the profile, but if you're riding Cade Fondo, it seems pretty flat. But he used it absolutely perfectly and to his advantage. A great call there, Beth, and they've really broken the rubber band here now. Homer and Kay are coming back to Mark, so that's going to be interesting contest for third position. Advantage definitely CCC here. There's 2 of them, and Mark is going to be burnt up quite a bit. Now Homer's starting to enter the hurt locker, but Mark's really at max, heart rate. So he's obviously feeling it at the moment. It'll be interesting to see if he can catch back on here. One play for Homer and Kay is just to try and go past at a speed that they drop Mark, and then CCC will be the last on the podium for the day.
Yeah, and definitely when you know that people are coming up from behind and you can see their speed, you can get caught off guard if you don't have that information. So there are times when you're cycling in the display and maybe a different platform doesn't show you the speed, so you can't see how fast you're going or how fast you need to go to maintain. And you can miss a group going by because you just weren't ready. You were slow to respond to the group. But it does look like here Kay and Homer aren't necessarily trying to push past him, but they do have more probably in their legs because they did play a little bit more conservative, and Mark had to do that massive effort to close down the gap. But what an effort on him by today. Don't let it go, my friend. Stay with him. I think he might be just a little bit cooked. You can see him drifting back a little bit, but the heart that he has displayed in this race is amazing. And then, Homer and Kay just tapping it out for the last 1.2 kilometers. With 1.1 kilometers to go, let's go back to the front of the race, catch on to Martin and Timothy here. Heart rates have settled some. That's a very, very marginal effort. They were in the 190s, but we've got 185 and 176. So, they just kind of took this last little bit. So it's going to come down to a sprint.
They're definitely setting up
who's going to take it.
Definitely setting up for the sprint. And maybe in the last race, we'll talk a little bit about more. You made another very important comment, which is people are too focused on power. It's like as though the power is going to get them across the line. What counts in cycling is speed. I had a cycling coach, and you spend all this time in power and all of that. But in the end, what matters is speed, right? And it's aerodynamics, and you see people doing that on the time trial. And that isn't just about power. Like a lot of times you can get more speed out of your aerodynamic position, even though you have a little less power. So very perceptive. I'm going to let you call the sprint here. Who are you picking for the sprint? I'm picking Martin. Who are you picking?
I'll take Timothy then. Let's go head to head, Frank. 0.3 kilometers to go. They haven't started. Start to kick it up there. Martin, 800 watts. Timothy, 1,200 watts. 1,500 watts. Answers it. Martin, just power. Oh my gosh, 1,500 watts. Timothy answering. The two of them are digging in. Oh my God, 62, 63 kph, and that's not going to be able to be closed down by Timothy. Martin just does a big old punch at the end there. Timothy taking second. Now we've got Kay coming across here. Kay and Homer got a little bit stretched out here. Kay's coming in for the podium for Team CCC. They were able to get around Mark, which we saw that happening when they closed up to Mark and came around him. So they were able to just continue to race their race. Nice work, Mark. And then come across the line with a podium spot and get around Mark in fifth. Here we are back on with Pedro in sixth place here, coming across the line. Vanessa is a few seconds back from. This was a long race. I don't know what the total timing duration it was, but it did happen pretty quickly. I know you were thinking that it might have taken a half hour. It didn't feel like that. They flew through that course. And here is the live results for this first race in the playlist here. Martin just crushing the sprint. Now I am like sharpening my pencil and making a note that Martin has some sprinting legs. Timothy does too, but Martin really outsmarted him that way. And maybe I think it was the timing of when he did it. I think that Timothy was a little slow to respond on that, and Martin got a jump. Kay taking that third step. Good job, Kay. Homer fourth, Mark fifth, Pedro sixth, Vanessa seventh. And that was the group that you saw working together for the first couple kilometers, maybe 5 kilometers before things got a little bit animated.
Yes, probably advantage Timothy on the overall points for the day of the playlist because the next couple of races Timothy's going to excel at from his technical. Martin probably needs a little bit more experience to be really good on the technical courses. But that being said, the last one, also a double points race, is more endurance oriented. Now there's a couple of places that could catch Martin out on Rocky Mountains because there's a couple of tight corners. But if he doesn't go down and he hangs with Timothy, I'm kind of predicting a little bit of an upset here today. Martin might be taking the overall, but it's probably going to come down to that last race. So that's going to be interesting.
All right, and we're going to be moving into Cadeville. It's 2.2 kilometer race duration here, and it's just 1 lap. There are 2 Razor Edge power-ups here, and there's a multiplier of 1.5. So with Razor's Edge, it's a power-up that allows you to be super aerodynamic. And when you're watching the race, you'll see an animation on these avatars to indicate that they're active in a power-up. So we'll see that as we go through. And with 2 Razor's Edge on a short technical course like that, it's going to be very strategic of where they use it. When you look at the course turns on the upper left-hand side of your screen there, you've got some straightaways and you've got these really big, like hairpin turns. So in terms of the duration of the Razor's Edge, because you do not have, sometimes you'll see people use the corner caper in combination with the ones that give you speed, but they have to be really careful and use it so to their advantage so that they don't have to slow down too much after all that free speed. All right, here we go. Out of the gate, first few seconds here, these avatars are transparent. That means that they're able to sort of get their positioning in, levels the playing field for anybody who really wants to establish the lead. They have that opportunity to do that. You can see Vanessa coming out on the front here. Now, this is interesting here. Vanessa, who really put in a lot of effort despite her placement. Her placement didn't really warrant the effort that she got in there, and she does go down. Ragdoll's there on this side. Get back up, Vanessa. Start pedaling. You'll be okay.
I think
Timothy, go ahead.
Vanessa might have done that on purpose. I'm calling on that one. I think what she did is I'm going to crash in the first corner, and that'll give me an excuse to go really easy the rest of this race. So I think those legs are burning a little bit for Vanessa. We'll get a report from her a little bit later on. But we see Pedro holding close here. Using a corner caper here to close down on Timothy, but that's going to give Timothy an advantage because he's going to have that power up a little bit later on. And we've got Erhan up here using his skill. Now we've got Martin further back. And again, Martin's got to try and stay in contention just to score some points on these technical ones. But it looks like it might indeed come down to that last race.
Yeah, and if we're looking at the racers here, Erhan, you can see when he's gliding, he was like letting off the gas there for the corner, and then he comes back on and gives it a little bit of a punch, settles back in, just blasting a little bit of power, these little micro bursts, cruising around the corner there. Very, very, very clever. Watch what happens here. This is just interesting to see. Then he comes up out of the saddle, puts a little dig on the straightaway, settles back in, and lets the bike coast through the corners. So, he's like, no, I'm done. I'm going to use this corner caper. But he does get a little bit, hits the wheel of Renee there, I think, just didn't have his lane positioning right. So just a little bit of a technical error there. You do have to steer in Cadesport. So if you are thinking about dropping a power up, doing anything, just look at what's in front of you, because he didn't have a quantum shift, which would have allowed him to go through Renee, but instead he ended up using that corner caper and maybe losing a little bit of time within that power up here. Timothy Tremont, 9 seconds up the road from Homer. You can see at this point, Timothy's watts, 200, watts, he's established his lead. He's not working too incredibly hard in terms of physical, but he is working very hard in terms of mental, because he can continue to open up that gap. You can see he's doing 32 kph, which isn't significantly faster than Vanessa, who said, you know what, Frank, crashed, down she goes. She is, I don't think she crashed on purpose on that first one. You can give the report there, but they're all together here. Renee uses his corner caper. Renee says, expired, before you got through the corner. Fired that off a little bit too early here. But yeah, Timothy looks pretty relaxed here. His heart rate's even coming down further. 164, drops the corner caper here. That might have been a mistake here, because I can't imagine there's not a corner there. So that's okay. And here we go. Homer, Pedro. That is a quick race. That is a quick race. And Renee coming in fourth.
We definitely did set these up, so
yeah.
Right, as short. Yeah, that was amazingly short. So kind of fun in its own way. I was like, why is he sprinting? And it's like, oh, it's over.
Well, that's why I was like, wait a minute, I'm surprised about the corner caper. And then I just, put my palm to my forehead. You can't see me because I'm off camera. I'm like, oh, that was the end. Well, paying attention there, Miss Commentator. Timothy Tremont, there's no way that they were going to make up that 12 seconds that he put down. But that is something that we see on these shorter courses, is you get the lead early, let other people chase you. They'll make mistakes, and hopefully you won't. Pedro, Homer, Renee, Vanessa, K6, Shaq 7th, Erhan, Martin, and Mark. And I think that we see Martin and Mark, in this race, 1.5 multiplier. So they're not going to get that many points, but we'll see how that all shakes out in the overall. But Pedro, nice job seeing you up there on the on the podium. Homer, congratulations on your podium finish. And we've got CCC, 2 podiums, 2 races, looking good today for Team CCC. Going on to race 3, we've got Cade Kart Grand Prix. It's 2 laps, 1 corner caper, a quantum shift with no multiplier. So this is another one that's probably going to go quick. Blink. If you blink, you might miss it. Unless you're a racer, you're completely focused and time slows down. It does this weird time shift thing where you're incredibly in the zone. 2.8 kilometers. You can see the course profile there. Those little bumps, those little in the elevation profile, not super steep, but they are enough to actually get some acceleration. You need to push up the hill, and then there comes a corner. So that's something that, not only do you need to know where the corners are, but if there is some assist with gravity, if there is some punch that you need to do to maintain your speed, you do have to watch out for the corners. So, with what we've seen today, Frank, what are you thinking are racers? Who are you favoring here in this next race?
Well, definitely we're going to see Timothy up there at the front. I think we'll see Vanessa potentially giving him a run for his money. I think in our overall, our shakeout cruise, something is wrong with our automated scoreboard, so I've been doing some manual calculations. You've got Timothy off the front now with a pretty sizable lead over Martin because it was a big spread there in terms of things. So there's about a 13.5 point spread, but definitely can be made up in the last race. But Martin really is going to have to concentrate. Martin, just go slow, just don't go down, and you'll be surprised you'll finish, third anyway, in the race. So hopefully he'll be able to hang on to a decent spot here and keep it interesting for the last race.
All right. So as we're getting into it here, first lap of two. Timothy, as you said, is on the front. Renee and Vanessa right here in the mix, and Renee goes down. So I think Renee was like, "I'm in the front," and then I think he was hanging on, and he didn't slow down enough in his excitement there. Vanessa here is taking the front. Timothy must have made a mistake here, and then Pedro. K. Homer. So we've got this team CCC here, being in the top half of this peloton, not quite peloton, sorry, in the half of the standings here. And then further on down the line, you've got Shaq, Mark, Renee, and Martin all a little bit further back. So it looks like it's going to be on the front here, Timothy and Vanessa, a little bit of cat and mouse here. So I don't want to be chasing Timothy. But
yeah, Vanessa was in a good position there until she overcooked that one corner, slid out. She's getting very familiar with the tires, and in this case, the barriers. Now she's claimed that there's like cookies or something in the tires, and so that's why she finds herself there a lot. But here we see what sort of happens. Overall, a lot of people crashing in front of you. And so you'll if you just stay up, even if you're going slow, you eventually sort of get to the front, and that's what I think some of the good people have learned. And then once you do that, you sort of get calmer on the corners, and you become much better at the skill levels. So you see Timothy saying, "I might not have the endurance, and maybe Martin's going to beat me in the last race, but I'm going to make hay while I can here, and hopefully I'm going to make enough hay." There as well. So interesting as we, sort of watch this. Now, overall, in third position is, for the playlist, is Homer. He's also in striking distance of Martin, but Kay is only basically 2.2 points behind him. So maybe it's going to be a family battle to see who takes the podium spot for the playlist today, but definitely advantage there. And then we've got Mark in fifth position in terms of the playlist, but a little bit further back. So we see the Thompson people coming together there on that corner, and then Kay getting a little bit of separation. So it'll be interesting to see how this lap goes for them.
Yeah, here we are on board with Homer. So Frank, is he on a time trial bike here in the game? Is this what he's selected?
He is, and that might be why Kay's got a little bit of an advantage, because Homer's got an aero advantage, but he's got a little less grip in the corners because of the width of the tires on the time trial bike, and we actually do all the physics for that. And so that he might be finding it a little bit difficult. Like, he's saved a couple of skids, but he might be wondering, hey, why can't I go through the corners as fast as Kay is going? And it might be just down to the bike choice.
Yeah, and I think that that's one thing to think about too, with the dynamics in the race is he probably had that selected on the first race because it was a longer race, and you can kind of benefit more from a time trial configuration on those longer races that are mostly flat. But here we are back on with Timothy here, 700 watts there, big punch before that corner, slowed it down here. His heart rate is really in control. Vanessa about 15 seconds back, doing quite slower. So I think that obviously these races, once you kind of get a couple seconds, unless there's a crash, you're not going to get that gap opens up more than 5, 6, 7, and it's very hard to catch back on. So Pedro here is in front of Erhan. Erhan's chasing down Pedro for that third position here. Timothy in the front. Vanessa's likely going to have that second place here, and then Pedro likely going to have third here. Sometimes I like to say pretty close, but if you look at those gaps, even with a crash penalty, we're not going to be able to see those. So Timothy, I think, is going to just kind of cruise through here. His heart rate did come back up with that punch that he made. I'm not sure if he needed to get those extra few seconds on Vanessa to seal the deal, just to say, nope, you're not going to catch me. Vanessa did make a mistake. Looks like she went down. But she's still enough in front of Pedro that she should be able to hold that second position. So that's a very nice finish for Timothy. Very nice finish coming up on Vanessa. And Pedro, I don't think Erhan's going to catch Pedro either. So Pedro will have another podium position on this day.
Yes. So
across the
Pedro
lines
also
he
coming
goes.
up on the skill side as well. Yep.
Yeah, and I said that in the first race, that just over the last few races of the last couple of weeks, he's definitely been coming up on skill and even fitness level, and I think that that's something to, we keep talking about skill and endurance, but putting it all together does take time, and it takes consistency, and your fitness improves just in the process of it, and it's really, really fun to see these racers improve their fitness through the game. And here are the standings for race 3. As we saw, Timothy takes the top step, Vanessa second, Pedro third, Erhan in fourth, Homer there in 5th place again. I think that's the second fifth you've seen. Renee in 6th, Kay, Shaq and Mark in 9th, as we see it with some people still out on course. So that is race 3 of our four race playlist. And I'll let you do the quick math on that and give us those standings. But I'm thinking, Timothy is not being answered. He's not. People are not going to be able to make up that gap if they don't have these 2 races to help chip away here. But as we move on to the third and final race of this playlist, you can see it's going to be 7.8 kilometers on Rocky Mountains. Now, Rocky Mountains is one of my favorite courses because there's some twists and turns going up the hill. There's some beautiful bridges. The view is gorgeous, and the descent is very technical. There's a few corners on the descent that can trip up the racers if they're not careful, but it's definitely one where you can also get dropped on that nice steady climb because you can put the power down and you can open up that speed differential. There are no power-ups on this one. It's a score multiplier of 2. So with no power-ups, it might be hard for someone to make an early break and get over the top before, but that's usually what I see on this race, is that trying to use the top of that climb as an attack to get that speed on the down and on the downhill. So I suspect we might see some tactics, and we might see some tactics that I haven't seen before. So racers, surprise me, show me something, give me something fun to call. I want to see what you can do. I want to see you guys, really light it up out there and give us a lot of animation.
Yes, I think this is going to be an interesting race. Some of the corners can definitely catch some people out. We've got Timothy at top. I think he's pretty much untouchable. Martin may have dropped out with the technical because I don't see him here on the course. We'll see as we start here if he shows up. Homer was very, very close in 3rd position, and Kay was a little bit further back, so she needs a little separation from Homer. But I think she's probably gonna put a little bit of the pressure down. Nope, Homer says, I think my legs are coming to me, and I think I'm going to do really well this race. Now, this is an interesting play because if he could get some separation from Timothy, now I think Timothy's his fitness is doing pretty well, but Timothy could fade, and if you get a few people in between, he may give Timothy a run for his money, probably a little bit too far back in this situation, unless Timothy ends up in last place or something. But it looks like Homer is motivated to take care of the day, or maybe he's just trying to tire Timothy out so that Kay can take the day in terms of this race. It'll be interesting to see what the tactics are.
Yeah, so we've got Homer, Timothy, Kay, and then behind Homer and Timothy, we've got Pedro, a little group of 3 or 4 people here. Mark and Vanessa, a little bit spread out from that group. So between 4 and 6 seconds back of Homer and Timothy is a group of riders that might want to kind of get together and work together and try to, because what we do know about Homer is he's a slow burn, right? He takes a bit to warm up because a usual ride for him is a century, back-to-back centuries on a weekend. So his legs are here. You can see his heart rate is little bit lower than Timothy's right now. He's behind. He's got the draft, and I think he's just going to use some of that draft for a little while. He just lit a little fire for Timothy, saying, I'm going to still make you fight for it just because you have the points, man. I'm just going to, and Timothy's like, that's fine. I'll work. I'm good. I can hold this up. So it'll be interesting to see if the two of them, if there's any games to play. But Kay a little bit further back with Pedro, still coming up those turns on Cade Rocky Mountains here, one of my favorite courses on Cade.
Very interesting sort of dynamics here. Timothy off the front, so I think he definitely had the legs. He raced yesterday, but it doesn't look like it took too much out of his legs. So he's sort of putting the hurt. Homer staying close within contact distance. So we'll see as this final 6 kilometers of the day passes by. We're here at 46 minutes, so the racers have all been working, but they also got a chance to sort of recover in the technical races, because you don't go super hard in those technical races. So that'll be interesting to see. We see Pedro here sort of getting a little gap on Kay. Where Homer's heart rate might be elevated due to fatigue, Kay's heart rate might be depressed due to fatigue. You can get both of those dynamics. And what that would indicate to me is that Kay might be a little bit more fatigued than Homer, actually, because it sort of goes through this cycle where first you get an elevated heart rate and then you'll get a depressed heart rate. And it's really important. I know I sound like a broken record, but it's really important to get your rest. I know that they've been riding a lot, but especially if that's the case for Kay, she probably just needs to take a day or two off. Maybe eat a cookie or two. I know that's a verboten these days. The sort of the carb thing, but I'd treat myself. Maybe have a bagel. And just sort of let the body regenerate the glycogen stores, build the muscle back, and those sorts of things. So that's some stuff that I would look at there. We've got Mark, whose legs are coming back to him, but it's going to be tough to close a 12-second gap. He's already, in the hurt locker. Now, one of the things that I'll say for Timothy, and this is a freshness thing, he's obviously fresh because he's able to go back to this hurt locker area and sort of hold the power down while he's there, and he's got the music going in his ears probably, and he's rocking back and forth, and it's just one of those days where you feel really good and everything feels great, as opposed to let's say Homer does have a little bit of fatigue. Boy, you're here at 185 and you're just like, oh, just go, dude. Like, I'm not interested in pushing out any more power. And I think the weekend or the early part of this week had Homer doing very, very well in a race. But man, I've seen him in a lot of races this week. That will definitely put the fatigue into the legs. Now, the good thing is he should get a big bounce, right? If they do their recovery, if they do cut down their volume, maybe take a day or two of rest, which is kind of hard when you're used to sort of cycling every day. What I used to find when I was riding sort of 25 to 27 hours a week outdoors is I always took Monday off. You put a little bit more time in the other days, but Tuesday was always a bummer. My body was like, nope, we're taking rest, and that ought to last a really long time because we're riding a lot. We do a 6.5 ride up the mountain, 6.5 hour ride up the mountains on Saturday as an example, kind of thing. And then you take Monday off, and your body's like, hey, let's just do this for a while. So it's a little bit hard to get into that kick on Tuesday morning. And so what some people do is they just ride all the time, so they don't experience that sort of on-off switch that your brain and your body goes through. But I think it's really good to take some time off. I had to force myself to take Mondays off, but I think that often ends up being beneficial long term. I think you also build your stamina better because you do give your body a little bit of a chance to rest. So, here on Cadesport, we're interested in wellness. We're in people having a great time. We're interested in people learning skills, cycling skills, not just power all the time, and how much we can sort of put out. I know a lot of people compare those particular numbers, but what we're interested in is wellness. This makes life interesting. As Timothy goes down, will Homer close that gap and not make that same mistake? Very interesting.
You can see that Homer did slow down, backed way off on the power there around that corner, saying, "No, Frank, I won't make that mistake." 7 seconds there. You can see he was really trying to hold it on there. That might have been the exact same boulder. Maybe he had that object fixation. When you look at something like don't want to, then you do. Your bike goes where your head looks. So maybe he was going a little too focused there. Object fixation. Timothy, 13 seconds in front of Homer.
There too, Beth. I know this happens to me. I think he started to get excited because, Timothy made a mistake. It was unexpected, and suddenly you're like, oh, wait a minute, I could go for the win. And I think he tried to accelerate out of that corner too hard, right? He just accelerated a little soon, accelerated a little hard, and that may be it. Now, we'd have to sort of look back at the tape or, ask Homer, but that was my impression.
Yeah, no, that's the part that really gets you. If you, when you're on the chase and you are close, it's very hard to temper your enthusiasm and also your legs. And I think that, I know this when I have different songs that like pump me up. I'll be driving in my car and like I will almost step on the gas because I'm used to just sort of like psychologically adding some go. And I'm like, no, you're not. Here's the replay here of the crash cam on Homer. You can see he starts to just kind of lean. There he goes. Down he goes. But we've all been there. Timothy here, nice comfortable heart rate on the day. I think that the last few races that we've seen, the playsets that we've seen, he's maybe given too much in the first race, and it's kind of like then he was trying to make up for it in the technical. This across the playlist, he just actually has been very strategic and has really played the day perfect. So he's earned his points today with his preparation, with his tactics, with his strategy. So anyone who thinks that it's just he's making it look easy, let's just put it that way, because you're like, oh, he's at the front again. This is not an accident, friends. And you were talking a lot about recovery and taking the rest, and it's really hard when your fitness level comes up because you feel so good and you feel it's not just a physical feeling. It's a all over. You got the endorphins, and it's really hard to go a day without them. And one of the things that I learned to do was to swim on those days because it really gave me a mental break as well as a physical break, but it gave me a little bit of movement without feeling particularly taxing on my body. So maybe some cross training. You don't have to lay on the couch, even though that doesn't sound so bad right now to me, but getting that recovery in. And then also post-race, one of the things that, these racers are going really, really hard. And post-race, like within the first hour or so of finishing the race, get some protein, get some carbs, really refuel those muscles. These racers and riders, you work so hard to build your strength and stamina. And a mistake is not eating enough after you ride, because those muscles will, you don't want them to eat themselves. It's expensive to build muscle. You invest in them. The sermon over.
Yes, no, and I was chuckling as you were doing that because we'll have to arm wrestle sometime about the rest. But you stated it beautifully. You stated it like every athlete I've ever known, which is, what do you mean take a day off? No,
just do something different.
Who wants to do that? Right? Just do something different.
Nice, Timothy.
Which I agree.
Yes.
Right. Timothy missed the clean sweep today because Martin took him out in the first race. But he's going to have bragging rights. He's got the new top score that I've seen on a playlist here recently. So maybe he'll send a little note to Carl saying, "Ha ha, I'm doing as well as you were doing last week, and I even scored more points than you did." So a little bit there, and I look forward to our continued debate on rest versus doing something different. And we'll talk about the different systems that the body has with regards to how to do that properly as well. Certainly different muscle groups will make you feel a little bit fresher. But then we'll talk about some of the other systems. So I look forward to continued spirited debate on that front. Now, for the overall today, I'm going to have to go back and see where Pedro finished in the first race. Maybe somebody can ping me because I missed that because I thought the automated system was going to be working. So either Pedro or Homer finished second. I can't really tell. They're very close in terms of points. And I think that one of those last wrecks for Homer on the where I think he was trying to catch Timothy may have cost him second overall. But either way, they're both on the podium. I just don't know in which order. Now maybe Kay could squeak Pedro out if Pedro was in 10th place or something in the first race. But I think he was probably sort of in the 6th, 7th range. And if that's the case, it would be Timothy, then Homer or Pedro. So we'll post that a little bit later on as I get that information.
Gotcha. And here we are on board with Erhan riding into the sunset here as he finishes this last race of the day in the playlist here. All of the racers show so much heart out there. We saw Mark really just put in some monster efforts in the first race. All of these, racers have to try something different and get out of their comfort zone. You can't just you can't just expect greatness to happen, or you do have to keep showing up every week. And I love seeing these riders come in every week, bringing something different to the table, giving us something to talk about. We'll have to do a little a poll on the boards there, Frank, to see what's someone's favorite recovery drink, how many rest. I'm kind of curious if we were to poll the racing community here to see what they do for rest recovery, what their favorite snacks are, because I think that when I'm racing, I'm thinking about, I'll have a cheeseburger. I don't know why. I always want a cheeseburger. Not immediately after, but I think about it. Even if it's a morning race, I think about a cheeseburger for lunch. So, but here's race 4, Timothy Pedro.
Cheeseburger, just so everybody knows. And
well, good.
I could eat them pretty much right when I got off the bike. So, like I said, I used to do quite a bit of long endurance and ride. My short days were 3 hours back then, and I would go out to dinner. You'll love this, Beth, and I would order 2 entrees. They used to laugh at me at the restaurant, and that did set me up for failure later in life because I stopped cycling so much, but I kept up with the 2 entrees for a while, and we all know how that turns out. But that's a story for another day.
Well, yeah.
And by the way, we do know that Pedro did finish second overall. He did finish 6th in the first race, so he just edges out Homer by 4 points, and it would have been reversed in that last race. So I think Homer wanted to go for the win. Kudos to him. I love seeing that. Or maybe Homer just didn't want to finish second. I never liked finishing second. I actually kind of preferred third. And so maybe that was Homer's strategy. But anyway, congrats to Timothy, Pedro, and Homer today.
Yes, congrats, everybody. This is another fun day of racing. Great job out there. Thanks for keeping it interesting. Thanks for being on camera. I know that it's sometimes, weird to be, revealing of yourself, but it really does make the racing so much more exciting when we see the effort and we see the personalities. So appreciate all of you showing up and racing today. That's going to do it for Thursday Cadesport Racing. From all of us at Cadesport, I'm Beth York with Frank. We'll see you next time.